I do believe, unless I'm mistaken, everybody's here but Peter. Did Peter come in and I missed him? No?
I
Okay.
don't see him here, but I just resent the link just in case.
Okay. See that the recording has started, so I will start. It is currently 6:06 and I hereby call the Town of Yarmouth Accessibility Committee meeting to order for today, March 7th. I would like to acknowledge that we sit on Micmac land, a traditional territory of Micmac people. Sherry has recorded attendance. I welcome our guests. Any absence of regrets, the only regret that I'm absent that I'm aware of is Peter. Is that correct? Okay. Declaration of conflict of interest. That pretty much goes without saying. If you have any conflict or any interest in any of the issues that we are going to be talking about tonight, please speak up at the time and we will excuse you from any vote that may take place. Approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion for approval of the agenda, but could I add one very quick information item?
Okay, I need just
Should be
one
under new
moment
business.
here. Tanya has come in and said she has no camera tonight, but her mic is working, so please be aware of that. She's here. Any changes or additions to the agenda before we approve it?
Yeah, just the one under new business, if we could, just a very quick information item regarding the Mariner Center.
Okay,
Thank you. And my motion to approve the agenda with that addition.
I'll second the motion.
Can we see the
Peter's
date from the
second.
last? Sorry, I'm skipping ahead.
Perfect. I would like under new business, I suppose I could put it under a chair. I can put it under the chair's report. It's nothing too serious. I've lost my spot here. Approval of minutes from January 10th. Did everyone receive a copy of those? Okay, has everybody had a chance to review those?
If you could scroll up to the top, I think it might have the wrong year.
Okay, if you haven't received a copy, you'd like a copy, you can download them off the Yarmouth town site, or Sherry can send them to you if she's feeling up to it.
Yeah, for the January minutes, I think the year was incorrect. I think it still said 2022. So that can be changed.
Moving on, there's no public input session tonight, but there will be a presentation tonight. So yeah, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just turn the presentation. So I'm a little eager to see what they're gonna do.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Turn the present. Pardon me?
Would the secretary require a motion for approval of the minutes?
Oh, right. Sorry, I'm jumping too fast here. I need approval. I need a motion to approve last minute's meetings.
So moved. Thank you.
Okay, there's one. Can I have a second, please? There's a second by Derek.
Steve is just so glad to see us all.
Just too eager. Okay, I'm gonna send it over to Nat. Who do I address here?
So if Kaylin Langell, the teacher from Yarmouth High School in the TAPS program, if she'd like to put her camera on, and the two presenters, Ryan and Charlie, if they can put their cameras on and introduce themselves. And when they're ready, then I will share the screen with their presentation.
Hi, is my mic working? Awesome. I'm Charlie McLaughlin. I'm a student at Yarmouth High in the TAP program, and I'm in grade 12.
I guess I'll go next. So I'm Ryan Montembeau. I'm also a grade 12 student at the high school, also in the TAP program.
Natalie, I'm not sure if you wanted me to say anything. I don't
Go
want
right
to take up
ahead.
time.
Go right
Yeah,
ahead while I
sure.
get the, yeah. go right
Yeah,
ahead.
sure. No, sounds good. Just really quickly, I'm Kaylin Langell. I'm their teacher. I've been their teacher for the last 4 years, and it's been really neat to see a group of students through a very different high school experience. And the town has been really supportive the whole time. They took co-op students last year and again this year. And I haven't seen their presentation yet, so I'm excited, as I'm sure you all are, to see what they have in mind. And again, appreciate the opportunity for the students to be able to work at the town.
Okay, guys, so I'm gonna be sharing it. It's not gonna be in it's a PowerPoint, but it's not in a live PowerPoint. So I think you should be able to see it, okay? Hang on a second. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, please go ahead then.
I guess I can start us off. So Charlie and I already kind of introduced ourselves. But yeah, I guess actually, since we passed that, Charlie, you can go first, I guess.
Sure, I'll kick it off. So our proposal is we are in development of a map for all of the accessible locations in the town of Yarmouth. So this is being developed using ArcGIS, which is a very popular GIS software. And it's basically going to be an interactive map of accessible areas in Yarmouth, such as accessible parking, accessible restaurants, shops, trails, and we're gonna just do our best to map all of that and make it interactive for anyone coming to visit our town.
And I can elaborate on that a little bit. So like Charlie was saying, some of the features we'd like to have are like audible traffic lights, just like tourist attractions that are more accessible to everyone. This can be also like stores, parking, even like trails, like walking trails, benches, just like everything we can find pretty much. And this requires us to sort of, I guess, go company to company and research on like what they have to offer pretty much.
So we're going to be doing, like Ryan said, we're going to be doing lots of field research. We're going to call local businesses, visit local businesses to see if they are accessible or not, and we'll put them in the map. We're going to have filters, so you can filter for trails, you can filter for maybe schools, you can filter for different kinds of shops, and we also want to make the map interface itself accessible. So maybe that could look like text to speech. So you hover over an icon and it'll read it out to you. And we also want to have like short descriptions of each point of interest on the map. And also, yeah, the search and filter as well, if we can implement that.
Something else I wanted to add was that we also are planning on possibly moving this onto an app after. ArcGIS right now is just like what we're starting with, but as we gain more information, once we like finish it, we'll probably try to put this on an app if that's possible. And I know that was kind of short, but that's all. We just started this now, and we felt that we wanted to share that with you. So I'll leave it up for any questions or feedback.
Chair, if I could ask a question. Actually, a comment first. Great presentation for both of you. It's impressive what the TAP program has developed, and what's developed is amazing students that represent our town really well. And thank you, Kaylin, for the work you do as well. That was a great presentation and very exciting about what it may actually, I'm thinking what it may actually do for businesses that are not accessible and them realizing how important that can be for their own business. So I guess my question is, if a business is not accessible, would it just be not included, or like, is there, or have you thought about that? Like, would it actually say it's not accessible, or would you just identify the ones that are accessible?
I feel like that's a really good point, because I think we should highlight it so that, say, a person with any sort of disability goes to a business and they know in advance that it isn't accessible, or that, you know, they can't access it or whatever. And it'd be nice to highlight that, and maybe that business could exactly push for accessibility.
And to go on what Charlie said, I also put down just like a little area of like more steep streets, I guess, because those would be like areas that you might want to avoid if you have like any accessible issues at all. But yeah.
Thank you.
I just
I
have
think
one
it's
quick,
incredible what you guys have done in such a short period of time. And I encourage you to keep on, and I'm glad to see that you came to this committee. And in the future, as you're approaching business and talking to them, I'd like to say that this committee is here to help, or any member of this committee is here to help. There's so many questions that come to mind, but I guess the biggest question that comes to mind is, what are you using as a gauge when you go to a business and say that they're accessible or they're not? We have several gauges that have come at us over the past 6 months, or over the past year. What are you guys using as a gauge?
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like the main would be mobility for sure. So someone in a wheelchair or a motor whatever could like access it. So mobility is huge. And I say visual impairment as well, so it's not like too confusing or anything. But yeah, that's a good question. We'd have to come up with a sort of way to gauge that exactly.
Because I would encourage you that disability doesn't stop at mobility. It can be hearing, it can be visual, it can be behavioral. I work with autistic individuals, and you'd be surprised, smells, sounds, different things that can set them off, when really there's just simple answers to fixing them. I look forward to seeing what you guys produce in the next 6 months, year or so, because I think you're on the right track. Question, go.
no, just a comment. I have an acquaintance that I deal with on a weekly basis that is in a wheelchair, and we've had to make use of the Hope Dial-A-Ride on occasion. So I just wanted you to make sure you guys are aware of that service, and the fact that it's a mobile service, so you can, you know, much like, I know you plan to put the bus route in, but the Dial-A-Ride is another service that enables people with mobility issues to get around just with a phone call. Anyway, just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, to add to what you were talking about earlier, I think we were going to add like more descriptions for each location, and I actually had an idea to like kind of put a gauge of like, you know, what level of accessibility this place has, I guess. But yeah, I appreciate that.
Yep.
Without getting into names of businesses, because I would never do that here, but recently I've noticed some of the self-checkouts in businesses and people using wheelchairs. I know we're talking about mobility here. They're not often set up for people using wheelchairs to be able to actually reach the screen, put their items on the part that weighs them, and then get them into the bags. I don't know if that's something you can maybe pay attention to and gather some information on as you're doing it, but I am curious, like, I don't know when they design those, actually, maybe you guys will be future designers of those as well, but when they design those, I don't think they have a whole lot of thought about accessibility, and I don't think there's any buttons on there for hearing impairment or visual impairments either. So those machines are becoming, you know, replacing the person at the cashiers. And I think limiting the amount of accessibility that we had when we had cashiers doing the work. So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah,
I want to hear
absolutely.
from Lori on this because I see she's chimed in
Yeah.
here.
Yes, yes, they are not accessible. They're not quite easy to use.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep that in mind. Thank you.
I'd have a similar experience if I can chat. The Sobeys, you can actually tilt them down so you can see them. The ones at the Superstore, you cannot. You either scoot up in your wheelchair or get somebody to tell you what's on the screen. What am I confirming to? For the
Yeah.
debit anyway.
Yeah. Not handy.
And the reason I bring that up is because I don't think some of the retailers are aware of that. I think they're putting them in and probably not looking at from a lens of somebody who might be in a wheelchair or somebody with hearing or visual impairment. So that might be an opportunity to kind of highlight, a certain store is very accessible when it comes to self-checkout. And other ones, you can do it, but it may be a little bit more difficult. I think it's awareness for the business to recognize that maybe they could have a better machine to do that. And I'm not sure what's on the market for machines, but it sounds like some locations are maybe easier to use than others. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like an inclusion of maybe one machine that is fully accessible, right? Because they are pretty tall, and I can imagine it would be difficult. So, and in this map, if it was like really mainstream, this could absolutely push for a lot of change in the town.
And just a comment, because Derek, that very thing I raised that point at one location, and I was told that they always have an attendant there to assist. And my comment to them was, that's great, except that you're taking away the person's independence. So I believe they hadn't considered that. They felt that the attendant was sufficient.
That's a really good point.
Natalie here. So Charlie and Ryan, this is not the last time that you're seeing them. They're working with us here 1 day a week until the end of March, beginning of June. So they're extremely efficient and productive. So they have to relook at their work scope to make sure, what can be accomplished in this phase. So the intention is to come back to this meeting forum as many times as the meeting is taking place. So ideally, at the end, they want to bring it back to this group, but in between, maybe it'll be by email. They'd like to engage with some of you guys who are, you live with this or know people that live with these challenges. So we want this to be an engagement with you guys one-on-one or one-on subgroup, or whether it's in a formal meeting or whether it's outside. So as they need it, I will just provide your contacts with them through Kaylin to organize that. So I hope you guys are agreeable to that.
Okay, well, I'll just put this comment out there. Is there anyone that would like to speak up now and say they would not like to be contacted? Okay, so with that, I'm gonna go that we have a consent across the board. That if these people would like to contact you with regards to what your accessibility issue is, or with regards to what your role here is, they have your email or phone number or whatever to reach out and ask questions or get comments or whatever you need. I think it's great what you guys are doing, and I think it's great that we'll do whatever we can to support you.
Awesome.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks for the feedback as well. It's really, really, really appreciated.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments, concerns before I move on? Great presentation. What they're doing is great, and I look forward to seeing what it comes out to. Okay. Moving on. I guess that would be me, the chair's update. I will say this much, we met last January on the 10th. I remember having a lot of technical issues. I haven't really been up to par this past month of January. Literally the day after January 11th, my father passed away. So pretty much during the month of January, I had to be with my family. It was only been the past couple of weeks that I've been back on top of things. With this committee, with other individuals that I work with. So to that, as much that could have been done wasn't done, but I did what I could. One of the things that I would like to bring up as chair is I don't, believe it or not, we've had 2, 3, 4 major snowstorms, and I've not seen anyone post a complaint on Facebook. And I've not had anyone complain to me on Facebook about the town snow removal. Has that been unanimous? Has anyone else had issues? I mean, no, we don't like the snow, but
I'm off Facebook, so
I-
I don't know if I haven't seen comments, but I haven't heard anybody talking about it, which is, I think, a positive message. Hopefully there's not a whole lot of complaints out and things have improved.
I
I
had to
would like
work
to say
on,
that either we're doing a better job or people are just complaining. I don't know, but I haven't had any, and I think that's great.
I had to
Yeah, I
work
got
on
Peter
Friday or
behind
Saturday
us.
night. The crosswalk across from where Kmart used to be over to the other side of Mariners, by the Mariners Center, had not been plowed out, so I could not get there and push the button to get the crosswalk sign. So that was missed by the sidewalk plow. That's the only complaint I've had so far.
Anything else? I'm gonna move on, finish the chair's report here. You should have all received an email, a couple of emails from me. One was with regards to Regina Donovan. I do know this individual. We were trying to find, what is the current vote, Sherry?
I have yes votes from all members except one who I didn't hear back from.
Okay. And is that individual here tonight? Can you ask them?
I can. Lori, what's your vote?
Okay, your mic's off, Lori.
Yes, that's fine. Yeah.
Unanimous yes vote then.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that's pretty much 100% unanimous. I was trying to reach various people this week, and I am sorry I couldn't get out to you. Anyway, you're all here tonight. That's perfect. Two things we were looking at was, one, the approval of Regina. Second thing we were looking at was in my paperwork here. Accessibility standards for customer service. We're going to look at that again in a minute. I sent you all out an email with a copy of that, as well as some questions. They weren't necessarily directed at that, more to get your thought juices flowing on that. So that's my report. And we're going to move on to citizen appointment. As Sherry has already said, that is 100% in approval. Is that correct? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So correct my dynamics here, if you would, Natalie, but now we, the committee, will make recommendations will make recommendation to the council to have her appointed. Is that correct?
Yes, if you want to just do a motion, I think you've done it informally. So basically, it's this motion that's gonna be going to council. And basically, you're gonna say motion carried unanimously. And so this, with the meeting minutes that Sherry provides right after the meeting, I'll submit that to the clerk. And
Okay.
that'll be added to the agenda for this Thursday night's council meeting.
Okay, perfect. I do have to ask for my own clarity. What is SACRS group?
Tracy,
good,
do you
we're all-
want to speak to that? That was cut and paste from your email.
Yeah, I just didn't know what it was, so I wanted to.
I'd have to look back. I don't know offhand what it is. I'm assuming an accessibility. I'm not sure. I'd have to look back.
Okay.
Does anyone else know what the acronyms are?
Okay, that's all right. So I will hereby ask that we make a motion to make the recommendation that she be approved by council as a sitting member on the accessibility committee.
So moved.
I have one and I need a second. Oh no, jump at once, people. Okay, Tanya seconds it. So that will move to council tomorrow night. Is that all you need from us with regards to that?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So now we're going to work on the working draft of the accessibility customer service policy. Can you bring that up, Natalie? Okay, as we go through this, be patient with me. I have a copy of it here in front of me and I made some notes on it, the things that I found interesting. If you'd like to speak on it, please do. Just maybe interrupt me as I'm going through it. And I may directly ask you some questions. It's just that right now, because we're on video, you've all kind of shrunk to little 3x3 little people. So if I don't see your hand or whatnot, just please feel free to interrupt me. Going through it, I had no issues with 1, 2, or 3. I found that as we go into 4.4 and 4.5, I found the termination of service animal guide and guide dogs to be a bit redundant. I think, in my opinion, you could take out 4.4 and just replace it with the concept of service animal. Sharon?
I'm not sure if anybody else is just seeing a black screen, but that's what I'm seeing.
Oh,
They also
yes,
have-
I'm sorry. It's all, it was there, it's gone now.
I'll share it again.
Thank you.
Do you see
First of
that?
all, does everybody have a copy of this? Anybody not have a copy of it? Didn't get it by email or anything? Okay. I was thinking that 4.4 and 4.5 are a bit redundant. I didn't really see the point as far as wording goes, maybe you could simplify it just by removing 4.4 and replace it with service animal. Because somebody with autism, somebody with epilepsy, somebody that's hearing impaired, they still use the term guide dog. Somebody agree, disagree? Talk to me, people.
I'm not 100% sure, but I am fairly certain that guide dog is reserved for people with visual impairments who use a guide dog, whereas a service animal would be for other things. But it does seem to make sense that they would be condensed into like the intent of each one. Like they could be put together, I think.
So I know a young lady with autism, and with autism, and she calls it her guide dog. So I'll just leave that out there. Anyone else comment on that?
I just believe that the common language used in the community would be guide dog would be reserved for people with visual issues, and service animals would be altogether different. But that's just what people in the community would, I think, understand. So I don't know if it's wise to throw them all in one lump together sort of thing.
Like, I think they are two different. I was just doing a quick Google, and yeah, I think they are two different things. But for like the intent of I don't know if they need to be two separate things kind of on here under, I guess it is definitions. Yeah. So it would make sense to keep them separate.
I think it should be separate. I think they probably have separate criteria.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Everyone happy if I move on?
Yeah.
Because then we get to 6.0 and we don't distinguish them. We put down guide dog, service animals. And we list just exactly which, to me, the wording there, yes, replacing them with his, her, with them, that's fine. The one issue that did come up is in 7.0, the person of under support persons, the town will waiver payment of the amount. Has not been my experience. I think it's a great concept, but it's not been my experience. Example, some years ago, I took an individual out to the Mariners hockey game. We had to buy 2 tickets for 2 seats, even though that person could not attend the hockey game without me. 6 months later, we attended the exhibition. I took the same person out. I got in for free at the exhibition because I was their support staff. I'm going to call on Gil if he's around to comment on that.
Certainly,
He knows
Stephen,
he was there. He knows exactly what I'm talking about.
certainly, and then just actually as recent as a week ago, I took a wheelchair patron to the Mariner Center, and I had to buy a ticket. That's the issue is that it's not a town operated event, although the town is part owner of the facility. The event itself is controlled by so the ticketing would be under the I guess the authority of the Mariners hockey team, much like the exhibition. And I know the exhibition has a different policy that they would likely allow an escort or somebody to assist. But the ownership of the hockey team has changed hands in this past year.
Yeah.
So it would be probably appropriate at this point in time to ask that question. And I think previously, if I may, the previous owners were a little bit concerned with, believe it or not, with abuse of that, that people would be taking advantage of the fact that they could just come along as an assistant, or even if they weren't needed. So they were a little concerned that there would be abuse, and I think that's why they had the policy. But it certainly wasn't something that the town or the Mariner Center had any control over at the time.
It's funny that he mentions abuse, and I know exactly what he's talking about, and I can see it happening. And Yakro, I think I can speak for Yakro, although I'll let Tracy correct me. But Yakro, all staff in Yakro now have photo IDs. And I would even go as far as to put in that wording that proper ID must be presented. But I am thinking, I'm just trying to think of an example where that may not be possible, but I can't off the top of my head. If somebody, I'm thinking if it's a parent of somebody or something.
Right,
Somebody
there
help
could be
me out here.
support people that do not work for an agency, or, they're a volunteer, support, respite worker. They may not have an ID identifying themselves in that role, but they for sure would be in that role. The issue is usually when there's a limited seating event. And I know the concern would be, if, half the seats were free, there's always that chance that it could be abused. So, it's tricky. I mean, we do go through a process with Cineplex for that type of service. But it is very tricky to open that door to not have it be abused. So there, I can go both ways with it.
Yeah, that is true too. With Cineplex, it's quite complicated.
It is.
You get a form that you have to take to a doctor and have signed off on. Then if I take a person to the movie, I have to have his access card plus my ID. And they do charge for the card, but it's not much. It's like $20, $25 for 5 years. It's not much.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure. I noticed Natalie has written a note there, and I think she's suggesting a change in the policy. But I would be more than prepared to discuss this situation at the Mariner Center with the owners of the team if you'd like.
I'm prepared to discuss it if they want. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I'll make contact if you with your permission.
Okay. Perfect.
I think Gil, if it was, presented in a way that there would be some controls in place, obviously, so that it would be manageable if people were support persons, that there would be some way to identify them as a support person and the need for the support person.
Absolutely.
And I'll just ask this question, Tracy, for those that might be listening, is providing an ID for anyone else, that for any other organization, is providing an ID complicated or expensive?
For us, the ID that we provide?
Just
Well, there's a
say,
cost to it. There is a cost to it, obviously, but and there can be abuse with that too. I mean, people can well, they can't fake it really, I suppose, but people can leave and still have the ID, not return it. So there's always a chance for those types of things, but I think the most important part is having the individual be able to access those activities if they need the support person, and to try to manage the people that don't need support, people that are trying to, just have somebody come in for free or their buddy come in for free. So that's really what you need to balance.
yeah.
Just to interrupt, for the purposes of this policy, which is related to events, as Gil had mentioned, for the town sponsored events or town organized events. There's no charge to those events. So what this is saying is that support persons can participate. We want to encourage them to participate so that the events are inclusive. But just as a get out of jail, is that if there were to be if there was a fee to be paid, then that would be waived. So this is what this is all about. But I do encourage the conversation happening here as to, you know, what happens beyond town events and how you as a committee can provide or promote what may not be happening at other venues. So that's why I've just put that comment there. So I think it's just for us to think about whether or not we need to add that. So if you're coming to a town event and we're saying you don't need to, we support having a support worker there, then why would we need to have an idea? Because it's not a paid event.
I think
But
that's
that's a good
really
point.
important, Natalie, to point out. And if we can, you know, keep that in mind, but also have, you know, our purpose to sort of, you know, guide other, if people want to, and guide and encourage other businesses and other activities that, you know, frequently have activities that do have a cost, to, you know, encourage them and give them information so it's less scary for them to feel that, you know, to take that leap to say, yes, we do want to do that. We do want to encourage people to come of all abilities. And if they have a support person, this is how it would work. Because I think a lot of people are open to it. They just don't really know, like Gil had said, that was the first concern, it would be abused. So, you know, those are the conversations that we really need to have outside of this policy.
And that can be part of, there is at the end of May, and I know Stephen is behind on some communications, but there is Accessibility Awareness Week that's happening in May. And so part of it, the information or the marketing or the promotional material coming out from the province is about as a human right, and that it should be inclusive. So maybe as Gil has taken the lead to speak with the Mariner Center, if they do, if you know, they can review their policy, maybe someone else in the group might want to approach the cinema. So the places where people typically go and they have to spend money for admittance might be a good opportunity for the group to go out and just and promote, you know, who they're missing from coming to their venue, because it is revenue that they're not getting maybe today.
Okay. But certainly brought up some discussion. I think it's discussion that warrants further study. Like we said, we definitely want to go ahead and talk to the Mariner Center, or specifically talk to Mariners hockey game managers, hockey people. I don't know what the term I'm using here, but I think that applies. And see what their policy is, and if, like has already been talked about, maybe we can help set up some rules or regulations that won't see them taken advantage of, or will lessen the possibility of them being taken advantage of. So for now, I'm going to say that we move on. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. The next notes, and if anybody has anything else here, the next one that I had was under training. And the only questions that I had under training was what type of training, where, when, is there a timeline involved, in what type of training?
So this is training related to town staff. So the training program, there's a training program that's in development with the Accessibility Directorate. It's actually a pilot trial. So I have some staff that are first response staff that will be attending it. We have some managers attending. And we're also encouraging elected officials. So there's 3 different types of pilot training. So the output of that training will help them to refine that training program. And then that then can go out to all municipalities for all staff to get training. So once that part is done, then internally that will be part of orientation for new employees. And then also, I'm sure as more things are coming out of the accessibility directorate with regards to the different types of accessibility that they're looking at, then more training will occur with staff. So number 1 is the accessibility directorate has put together a program. They're going to pilot it in the next while, and then based on that, then it'll roll out as a full program that municipalities can use.
Because there's one thing that I would like to throw out, and that's just from personal experience, is I would recommend mental health first aid training that's done by Elizabeth, and I can't think of Elizabeth's last name right now. I took it well, a few years ago. It was really good, and I think it's pretty key to what we're talking about here. I'll send you her name and her address, but she does seminars in Yarmouth if there's enough need. And once you have mental health first aid, it's you've got it. I'm actually going off on we hear another couple of weeks, courtesy of the union, an updated version or a union version on mental health first aid. So I would recommend, if you can find a course in that, mental health first aid. Anybody else in there? Okay, I'm going to go to Appendix 1. This was the next and it was just tips to how to welcome customers with disabilities. And for wording, I want us just ask, just so that we're all on the same page. Do we say customers with disabilities, or do we say customers with accessibility issues?
My understanding is that disability or having a disability, or some person with a disability, is the preferred language.
Thanks. Yeah, Tanya says she's not a fan of word issues. Yeah, it's been probably my number 1 concern, issue, or whatnot. I personally don't like being told that I have a disability. I look at myself as a person with accessibility issues. That's just my
Me too.
term.
Me too.
Yep. It's kind of like, if I may use the word, if you remember, what, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever, we would use the word retarded. You would never hear anybody use that word anymore. I hope not. Now they would use a term. They would call them by their health issue. You were a person with autism, or you were a person who was had an education issue or whatnot. You would never call them retarded. The word's passé. It's gone. It's thrown out. And I guess that's why I don't like being told that I have a disability. I tend to look at saying I am a person who has an accessibility issue, or a person that is hearing impaired. Because to me, over the course of time, the word disability has become negative.
First off, I'd
Yeah.
like I'd like Peter's comment, for those that weren't following in the chat, that he's not disabled, he's differently abled. And I like that comment. But secondly, I think you raise a good point, Mr. Chair. I kind of like the idea that rather than being disabled, that you have an accessibility issue. And I think that's our goal, is to overcome accessibility issues, is it not? So we should focus on that word.
I'll review with the accessibility director. I need to also go back to our original document.
Yep.
And if we can replace it with accessibility or accessibility issues or whatever the appropriate would be to the words I've used there, then I'll make the change. And bring
I'm
it
just
back to
glad
the
this-
group.
I'm just glad this was raised this evening, because it's an eye opener.
Like, if I can use, how many of us here are wearing glasses? A few? Would you consider yourself blind if somebody come up to you and said, hey, blind person? That would be kind of rude. Instead, I'm a person that wears glasses. I'm visually impaired. Without them, I can't see. Sorry, I'm messing with your wording.
In fairness, Mr. Chair, language is important.
I think section 2.0 really speaks to that.
Because
And-
the wording goes on, you got customers with intellectual disabilities, customers with mental health disabilities. Yeah, I don't think I really like that wording. The other one I wanted to go with smell, touch, and taste disabilities.
Sorry, is that referring to something in the document
Yeah,
here?
oops. The wording. I liked the wording here. If
Sorry,
you'll
can
see in
you
those
refer
columns
to,
of-
can you
if you've
tell
read
me which
through it.
one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Is it in the, can you refer me to which, where you're talking about referring to?
Yeah. When it came down to trying to think what page I'm on, but they're not numbered. 10.0.
10.0?
Yep, but that's not the right one. What's it called? 10.0 disabilities, smell, touch, taste, and other disabilities.
Sorry, we're going quickly here.
Yep, right there. I kind of thought a lot of this was redundant for what this is being used for, because smell, we sort of did talk about sensories as far as smell goes. And I think if people are familiar enough with the workman's comp requirements, that most workman's comp requires that a public place be scent free. Which I kind of thought when you take smell, touch, taste, it kind of made them redundant. I wasn't really sure they belong in this type of public or customer service manual. Thoughts, ideas? No one, like, no one that I know in all the years that I've dealt with accessibilities, you're never really going to know if someone has a taste disability, or if you do, you're not gonna be able to do anything about it.
I think this is more education.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, may I offer a comment?
Is it needed? I guess that's my question. If you're going to work for the town, would this be beneficial to you?
I think Gil had a comment.
The other thing I had, reading my notes here. Temperature, vibration, pressure. Yeah. Under touch disability. Yeah, just in my notes, I put down example would be autism. I don't know if that helps or not. Because they're definitely ones that have touch sensibilities. Yeah, Gail?
Yes, if I could just add to that list, I think one of the invisible issues is literacy. And I can give examples of
Yeah.
that. You know, as I spent many years involved with the Literacy Council here, and I can tell you that it definitely is an accessibility issue.
Okay. Could we also include that these are possibly invisible, or shall we say non-visible accessibility issues?
We were talking about wording earlier and under other disabilities, and it, you know, maybe it is the proper term, but under gender identity disorder, to me, it's such a negative term for somebody who identifies a different gender than the cisgender they were born with. I don't know if the intention of having the word disorder there, if that's maybe the proper term, but I think it's such a negative thing to have in the document. I'm not sure if that can be looked at.
Could it be called the condition instead?
I think it just need, in my opinion, it would just need gender identity. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, that probably.
I would
better.
argue that anybody who identifies as a different gender than the one they were born with would not see it as a disorder, or
Yeah.
they would just see themselves as a different gender. And
Yes.
Just giving Natalie a minute to catch up here.
Is that right, Derek? Just take out the word disorder?
I think so. Yeah, and maybe I'm wrong on that one. It just seems like pointing out such a negative thing for those people, for the people in the queer community that would identify as a different gender. Just having the word disorder seems to me, I don't know. Yeah, just a good point as well. Seizure disorders as well. I think that is a good one to highlight.
Anything else that you can think of in that section? So Gil, you said we need to add literacy.
Yeah, I think it's important because I could give you some examples if needed, but people that can't. Well, try to imagine yourself that you're living in a country where everybody speaks English, if that's your native tongue, but all of the signs in the country are in Arabic. And so how do you function? You can't read on a menu, you can't even tell when you're supposed to cross the street unless there's a sign of some kind. So I just want to point that out.
So one of the things that the province is working on, and it almost is like we put the horse before the cart, is the inclusive and diversity. So there's accessibility, there's inclusion, and there's diversity. So the inclusion would be for anyone, whether you have an accessibility issue or not. It's how can everybody be included in public life, which would be language as well. So, I mean, part of this is I will review this with the accessibility director because the town is kind of putting this draft, because it's not a perfect document. It'll be updated as the province brings out their own, but I will pass it by with them as well to make sure, example, definition or for literacy, and also the use of the word disability versus accessibility. So this document in part was taken from the Ontario policy that's in place. Doesn't mean that they're right. Just maybe we're more progressive and inclusive than when they had put this together. So just to let you know, this is not a done deal because we're talking about here. I'll take this input from you guys. I will speak to at the provincial level, identify what we see as concerns and see where they're going with it as well, and then bring it back to this group.
It's a template and a work in progress. Okay, is there anything here anybody wants to talk about before we move on?
Just to bring up a point that's a bit sensitive to those plus size people like myself. I was happy to see the word obesity there because when we have, if you have meetings, and once again, I'm not pointing out any particular spot because I don't think this is the place to do it, but there are times when being a larger man or a larger person that I'll go to a meeting and the chairs are like, like almost like plastic chairs, then I think I can't sit there. So I feel not included right away with that. So I think even like seating, making sure there's a spot, like, for wheelchairs, there should be a cutout or something so they can sit alongside with people. But, I haven't seen obesity in a lot of literature, and I'm impressed to see it. I'm hoping I don't fit that category soon, but at this point I still fit in that category. So I was happy to see it there.
Are you okay with the word obesity, or would you change the term to something else?
I would refer to myself as somebody who's obese, so I don't have a problem with it, but I don't know what others would think.
Because I'm going to say, as most people know, I'm a short person. Once again, I say I hate the word short. I'm just Steve, but I'm just going to throw that out there. Okay, moving on. Again, we talk about service animals, support people, support person, admission fee, advance notice. Comments, concerns?
I think this section I need to clean up. Where it said charges cannot be waived by municipality for private events held. So I have to clean this up because I think, Councillor Gill or Derek can correct me if I'm wrong. Any municipal event that we hold, we do not charge attendance. So I need to do some cleaning up because we don't, right now, we don't have a policy in relation to this, but I will need to double check because again, this is for town events, not for non-town events.
Yeah, I don't think there would be any charge for town events. I can't think of any, but I guess it opens a little bit of a gray area, events that the town may be sponsoring. And is there a part, I don't know what that gray area looks like, but if we're involved in sponsoring an event as the town, should there be an expectation that they would follow some of this? My guess is probably not, but.
But I notice here, they go and they ask for verification. Because it says a person with a disability may be asked for a letter from their physician nurse confirming that a support person is required with assistance.
Yeah, I think that's a tricky one.
That may not be a bad idea if we're looking, if, say, we have an example like Yakro where they do not have photo ideas, it may not be a bad supplement for, say, something like the Mariners Center hockey game. If we were looking for ways to get around it.
I think if it's a town event and we're saying there's no charge, then it doesn't matter whether the person comes with a support person or not.
Yeah.
Everyone, it's an inclusive event. Unless it is a by invitation only event, which we do have some of those. So generally, if someone is invited and they self-identify, I need to bring a support person for these reasons, or they require accommodation, which is a new language that we have to identify in all invites. Do you need accommodation? Which, as Councillor Lesser just said, does someone need special seating arrangement, or they need to be located in a specific area in the venue? So all of those things we have to identify as part of the invitation. What do you need to be accommodated to make sure that the event is inclusive and accessible for all? So that's part of how we do business differently to be inclusive.
Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to move down to 12.0, notice of temporary disruption in service and facilities. Yeah, I made notes here on that one. The town does, as far as I've seen, as far as the phone app, give notice where they can. I'm going to think of some examples where the bus has gone out of commission last minute. You can't necessarily accommodate that. It's gone out of commission. It broke down. Nobody saw it coming. But I am going to ask the question, are we covering all aspects and are we giving enough time? I felt that
unfortunately, when there's an issue with the bus and it's out of service, I mean, it's a safety issue. The bus cannot be on the road. So those are unplanned events. So they might not provide sufficient notice to anybody. And we've had a situation where our backup bus and the primary bus went out of commission at the same time, which is very unfortunate and very inconvenient to the riders. But generally, I think that, for example, if there's a holiday, that's given advance notice. So the question is, maybe I can get feedback from our communications officer. What is that advance warning? Is it 1 week? Is it 3 days? Do we need it to come out even earlier than that? So is that a question that you're also asking?
Yep. I guess what I'm asking is, what is fair notice for the bus being taken out of service, a road being closed, or a building being out of commission is like Natalie asked, is it 3 days? Is it 5 days? Is it a week?
So if I may, Mr. Chair, it's been my experience that the town provides maximum notice on all of those conditions. And so I would encourage people, if you don't have an alertable app on your phone, that you get it, because you will get the notices. And for the most part, I honestly believe that they give the maximum amount of notices they can. So as soon as they identify that there's an issue, it's made subject of an alertable notice.
I'm gonna ask from my own ignorance, how else does the town notify people? Because all I ever use is the app. What else is out there?
I know that there are oh, sorry, go ahead, Natalie.
So we do at the same time we do the alert, it's also on our social media. It's also on the town's website. If it is a situation where it's urgent and immediate, then we'll also do a radio ad. If it's a long term, like if it's a project, like a large construction project, then we will also put it in the paper.
It also does get quite often, like with the bus or whatever, it does get reported on like Tri-County storm closures. Somebody will usually post something in there as well, which is quite a following with.
I think the other thing, and I'll have to check with our communications officer, is if for planned disruptions, construction work, for example, that we're putting up signage way in advance of the project to say, and I think we've done this with some of our projects, construction will be happening, here's the route of the construction work, and it will be, this area will be that you can't commute in this area for X amount of time, and try to get people to understand where the detour is. So signage, because not everybody has access to a phone where they will use the alert system, or that they use social media, or that they even listen to the radio. So making it accessible has to be on the ground, and then any other form that we need to get the message out.
Like, I'll just say for argument's sake, I think we do a great job already. But I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page here as far as notice goes.
It is interesting because there are times where the route to the hospital has to be shut down, and there may be times moving forward that it will have to be shut down. And I know sometimes it's rerouted to like Session Hill or the other, like around through the municipality. But I had never thought about, is there still, when that happens, if there's still accessibility for somebody who's in a wheelchair, or accessibility for somebody who doesn't have a car and has maybe a bicycle and they can't go that far. If we're ever doing work in that area again, is that something we can look at, making sure there's a path open for somebody to get through that way, or walking, I guess? And the answer may be no to that. I don't know, but it might be worth exploring.
I think that's a really, really good point, because we think when a detour is identified, well, it's a detour for someone that has transportation or has mobility. I know there's a big project that's coming up this summer, and we have looked at different ways of communication, but I'll speak with the town engineer to see what other methods they're putting in there to communicate with people with that might have accessibility challenges outside of a car, and maybe ask this group for some input into other ways of communicating, or to look at the routes differently.
And it wouldn't matter as much. I mean, that's one area that stands out because it's the only way through town. Like you're not going to get to the hospital, which is a necessary spot for people who might, I mean, not that if you have a disability, you have to be at the hospital, but if you need to get to the hospital, that's maybe your only way there. Because outside of that, that's the only town route to that spot. So it is worth exploring a little bit if there can be but I know sometimes if they're doing major renovation, that might not be possible.
Okay, I think we've also talked about that pretty much also goes into the best practices to providing notice. Anybody else want to add anything on that? Can you bring that up just a hair more? Because I will say, as far as accessibility telephone service, I would go on to add to reach out to your communications company because they all provide some sort of relay service, not just Bell. I don't use Bell. I use TELUS. I've used Eastlink in the past, and they all provide various types of communication for people that are hearing impaired. Of course, now everybody texts. You pick up a phone call from somebody, you wonder what's going on. Again, we go down to council chambers, microphone availability. Let's go back, you council members. Is hearing an issue?
I don't believe so. I think, I actually purposely, I have hearing aids and I quite honestly don't wear them during council meetings because there's too much additional noise, people shuffling papers and things like that I find interfering. But as far as the microphone system, I think it works well.
Maybe, and I'm going to throw this out because I had to talk to my coworkers, but maybe some training on how hearing aids work and what does and doesn't work in certain environments with regards to hearing aids. Just to give you an example, the first thing I had to tell my coworkers is when I walk into an environment and everybody's talking, the TV's going and everything like that, I'm picking up all that noise. And it's very hard for me to focus on any particular voice. So if I want to focus on what you're saying, while everything else is going on around me, I have to take you out of the situation that's providing noise. So maybe you want to talk to your council about everybody taking a turn when they're speaking and eliminating background noises. Then you get feedback and Sherry can't hear.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Sherry? Where'd you go? Municipal elections. I can't comment on that. That's out of my realm.
Well, basically, if the town is holding elections, wherever it is that people can come to vote in person must be fully accessible. That's already happening at the provincial and federal level.
Mr. Chair, I just saw a note saying that the meeting will terminate in 5 minutes. And I don't know if that can be extended or not.
I understood that we had to 8. I saw that too. I just thought it was part of the Are we on a timeline, Natalie?
Well, I just did a standard M Teams invite, so hopefully not. So
Okay.
let's
Well,
pretend it's gonna happen and then use your
It's
time
been my
accordingly.
experience that these meetings can terminate abruptly, so I'm wondering if we could, is it necessary for us to complete this analysis tonight on the plan?
I think anyone can provide me with input offline by email. Or they can just call me up and just say, Natalie, I want to give you this input verbally. They don't have to do it in writing. So please get a hold of me directly in whichever manner, or come see me, whichever manner works for you. I will take all input in, and as I said, we'll review it and then bring it back to the group and to staff here. I think there are two more agenda items. One is the Easter Seals letter, welcome letter, and then the new business on the Mariner Center.
Okay. Is everybody comfortable taking a look at this wording and emailing your thoughts to Natalie? And I won't drag you on and bore you all to death. Some of you look like you're ready to fall asleep on me. Okay, so we'll put that aside. Excuse my voice here. Moving on. The letter from the Easter Seals, I wrote up a letter for the Easter Seals, and Natalie or Mike is going to send it off. And hopefully we'll hear from them. Next item I have is new business. And that goes to Gil.
First, just let me say that SACRS, which was talked about at the first of the meeting, means sacral agenesis caudal regression syndrome, and it's a condition of birth that affects the spine. So I just wanted to let you know that. Secondly, I had an issue identified to me. Actually, I observed this taking place at the Mariner Center with a lady having a difficult time, and she's a season ticket holder accessing her seat because she is now using a cane. And it was only with the assistance of some other patrons that she was able to get there. I spoke to her the following day, and I've sent information off to the chairperson of the board, who's going to bring it to the board with a suggestion that handrails be installed on the stairs to allow better access. So I think rather than bring it back to the committee, I just thought I'd contact the board chair directly. And one more comment, it was brought to my attention today that not all heroes wear capes. And so I just want to say, Sherry, you're my hero. If anyone didn't know, Sherry's donating a kidney. And so, yeah, I just wanted to get that out there. Thank you.
It will hopefully probably happen in May. So I may disappear for a while. I'll miss you all, but I'll be back and I'll let you know.
I'm sorry, Gail, I missed. Where did you say the handrails were not?
It would be in the stairs going down in the bleachers, the concrete stairs going down. There are no handrails. And at the Scotiabank Center in Halifax, they have split handrails, so they still allow access crosswise through the stands, but you can't have a solid handrail going all the way down. It would be contrary to fire regulations. So it would have to be something similar to the Scotiabank Center.
Well, I would have thought, like you just mentioned, that they would be required, like under fire code. Huh. Of course, I haven't been to the Scotiabank Center for quite some time, so. Do we have any other items to discuss? One of the items I wanted to bring up is, are we okay with meeting every 2 weeks?
2 months?
2 months, sorry. Thank you, Sherry. I can tell you that in the future, there will be more public input sessions. Public input. I've already spoken with Yakro. We're going to hear from them. I'm hoping to hear from Easter Seals. So there will be more public input sessions coming.
I tentatively have the date because I think we have less than a minute left before we may all disappear. Tuesday, May 9th at 6 p.m. if we do want to do in another 2 months.
I'm good with that. And maybe if we require anything else, it would be at the call of the chair.
And just to make it official, I guess I would make a motion that we adjourn, just in case we happen to be forced to adjourn before it happens. I do want to say, hopefully I get this in, how impressed I always am with Natalie and the work she does. Our staff are incredible. And Natalie, we bring it up at staff meetings or council meetings, but we really appreciate all the work you do. And you're giving up your evenings here to do these meetings, and you always put so much thought and energy into what you do. So you're very much appreciated.
Here, here.
Absolutely.
No,
I'll
it's not
second,
Natalie,
I
we'd be
second that.
lost.
And if you've
That's
ever
very
read one of
kind.
Natalie's reports to council, you would understand exactly what Derek means.
Okay, so we're all okay with meeting every 2 months. And I have a motion from Derek to adjourn.
Will the next meeting be virtual as well? Sorry, before I get cut off.
Yes.
Okay.
How does everybody feel about meeting in person or meeting virtually?
I personally find the virtual meetings very convenient.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
very convenient.
I'm good either way.
Likewise.
Yeah, I'm good.
My guess is keep it virtual because it's so much easier. Any objections? No. Okay. So we're going to keep it virtual. We're going to meet every 2 months. Did I miss anything? Okay, second motion to adjourn. And Tracy's got it, and we're out of here.